At this time, I'd like to introduce our presenter, Krista Poss, Marketing Manager for System Sensor. Krista, take it away.
Thanks, David. So the goal of this webinar is to provide a broad overview of SpectrAlert Advance and the associated online tools that we've designed to simplify AV design and installation processes. So first, we'll provide a quick overview of what SpectrAlert Advance is, our complete line of AV notification appliances. Then I'll go over our three main online tools, which are the Mounting Options tool, Equivalent Facilitation Calculator, and our new Voltage Drop Calculator. Next, I'll show you how we've provided easy access to online engineering specifications and our CAD drawings. Then I'll talk a little bit about SpectrAlert Advance online training options, what we have already available and what we're working on in the next few months. Finally, we'll leave about 15 minutes at the end of the presentation to take your questions. And like David said, you can type questions anytime using the GoToWebinar toolbar on the right side of your screen. So let's get started with an overview of SpectrAlert Advance. SpectrAlert Advance was designed with extensive voice of the customer research to provide value to all customers along the chain. So from the specifying engineer to the installer all the way to the end user. The entire range features a plug-in design. It has a similar family look for buildings or applications where you're mixing speakers and horns and strobes. And they all have field adjustable settings. So the extensive line covers fire and life safety, mass notification, or ECS as it's now being called, as well as general signaling. And really it was designed to save time and reduce costs on installation and maintenance for the notification appliance system. So now that you have a little background on SpectrAlert Advanced notification devices, let's take a look at some of the tools and training we are providing to help you design and install your systems. All of the tools and training in this webinar are about providing you with ways to simplify your job if you design or install notification systems, whether it's automating complicated calculations, getting you the documents you need for a project, or arming you or your employees with important knowledge for use in the field. System Sensor designed these tools and training to make your life easier. So let's take a look at the first online tool, which we call the Mounting Options tool. We created the Mounting Options tool for system designers, installers, and even purchasing people. And what it does is simplify the process of matching the SpectrAlert Advance device with the compatible back boxes as well as any additional or required accessories that are needed. So the tool is designed to save the installer from being out in the field and then discovering he's missing parts or that the incorrect back box was installed. It's also designed to save planning time up front by eliminating the need to pour through data sheets or installation manuals to find out what back box is compatible with a horn strobe. So it's supposed to save time and really eliminate a lot of that upfront planning. The Mounting Options tool is a web-based application, so users can access it from any computer that has an internet connection by going to systemsensor.com/mount. So I'll show you a short demo of how it works. So the tool is really pretty easy to use. You click on a short series of drop-down lists on the left side of the application to select the details of the installation. So first we'll put in the product model, and then the mounting location, whether it's indoor or outdoor, wall or ceiling, and then the back box type. And as you can see here, the application will automatically limit subsequent available options based on your previous selections. So the only back box options here are those specified for outdoor use. And you'll see once I restart the demo that the back box selection will drive the accessory options as well. So now that I've selected a back box, the application is telling me that my choice requires an accessory. So this will tell you right up front that if you're ordering the horn strobe and you're planning on using it outdoors in a wall application with this back box, you will also need to order an accessory. Once I choose an accessory, the application returns an exploded view drawing of all the parts required for this particular configuration. So you'll see here, if I go back and choose a different back box, no accessories are available or required with that configuration, and I get back the exploded view drawing once the selection is made. So remember, you can try out the mounting options tool at systemsensor.com, then /mount. So next, let's take a look at the equivalent facilitation calculator. Like the mounting options tool, the equivalent facilitation calculator is also a web-based application, so you can access it from any computer that has an internet connection simply by going to the address on this slide or through systemsensor.com/AV. The equivalent facilitation calculator enables installers as well as system designers to ensure that ceiling-mounted strobes provide the same illumination coverage as wall-mounted strobes, and that they meet the minimum illumination requirements specified in NFPA 72. So this now enables performance-based design with ceiling-mounted strobes by showing the amount of coverage the light from the strobe will provide in square footage. So I'll walk you through a quick demo of how the equivalent facilitation calculator works. So first you select the candela rating of your device, and for this demo I'm going to use 75 candela. Next you input the size of the room in square feet. And for the purposes of equivalent facilitation, you input the length in feet of the longest wall in the room. So in this case I'm using 50 feet. And finally you input the ceiling height in feet and then select calculate. In this case I'm using 10 feet. So now the tool makes all of the required calculations and returns your results. This can be printed for your records, for the AHJ, or to be included in the job folder. Now if you see red on the report, as we are here, it means you're not meeting the minimum lumens requirements, and you'll need to either increase the candela of the strobe you're using or decrease the coverage area. So next we're going to look at the voltage drop calculator, but first I think we'll pause for a poll question. So David, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Thank you, Krista. Our first poll question is about how you design voice evacuation systems. So please take a look at the question and answer by clicking the appropriate box. How do you currently design voice evac systems? Do you use modeling software that might incorporate furnishings, materials, and room size, etc.? Do you use experience from past jobs? Do you outsource to maybe a fire protection engineering firm? Or perhaps you don't design voice systems, or it's not applicable to your business. So I see about 40% of you have voted. I'll leave it open for about another 5 seconds or so. We would appreciate you voting on our poll questions when they do come up. And we're about 75%. Still have some votes trickling in. I'm going to close the poll in about 3 seconds, so if you would, go ahead and vote. All right, thank you very much. Let's close that poll, but I do want to share the results with you because we do have a large audience with us today. You might be interested to see how you or your peers answer this question. Looks like mostly experience, Krista. 60% have reported back from experience in previous jobs, and then second would be outsourced to a fire protection engineering firm, and then it's not applicable to their business. So I'm going to take those results down, and we'll go back to Krista.
Great. Thanks, David. So now we're going to talk about the voltage drop calculator. The System Sensor Voltage Drop Calculator is really a quick and easy way for you to plan and model notification appliance circuits using our entire line of SpectrAlert Advance notification appliances as well as legacy devices. So if you have retrofit jobs where you're going in and adding devices or changing the layout, we do have these models in the calculator that you can go back and refer to that data as well. So the program calculates the number of devices per circuit and the percentage of voltage drop based on wire gauge, number of devices, and the distances between devices along the circuit. So the new application provides quite a bit of functionality. So we really want to show you some of the new functionality, how the calculator has changed. So this demo is provided to, excuse me, so the demo I'm showing you is designed to explain some of the key features only. So refer to the Voltage Drop Calculator Help Guide for more complete instructions on how to download and use the application. And this can be found at systemsensor.com/volt. So that's where you go to download the Voltage Drop Calculator, and you'll find the complete instruction guide there as well. Okay, so this is the main design page that you're seeing here, and all project design work for the Voltage Drop Calculator is accessible from this single page. So this is where you create your panels, create your circuits, and add devices. So we think this is a nice way to make it really easy to navigate this calculator. You're not going through several pages. You can see everything you're doing on one page. And while these tasks can be completed in any order, in this demo I'm going to show you in step order, which I think is the easiest way to use the calculator. So to create a panel, you can see here that users can update the default values by inputting your panel's name, selecting a voltage, so 12 or 24 volts, and your power input, so DC or full wave rectified. And multiple panels can be added to a single project, but they must be selected one at a time to add your circuits. So adding a circuit is done in much the same way. You can add multiple circuits to the selected panel. You can see there the amps is adjustable, Class A or Class B, your wire gauge that you're using. And since I chose to add an MDL sync module, you can see the module appear on the device listing at the bottom, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. Something important to note is if your panel or power supply has System Sensor Sync protocol already built in, you don't need to add a sync module to the calculator. So the next thing I'll do is to add devices to the circuit. And basically you input the criteria for the type of device that you need for your project. And then the application returns the device or devices that match those criteria. So by selecting wall or ceiling, indoor or outdoor, and the color, that narrows the range of what selections the calculator will give you. So you then select the correct device from the list, and you can see a picture of it in the upper right-hand corner to verify your choice. Also, since I selected a horn strobe as my device, I have to choose either temporal or non-temporal tone, and then the volume as the horn as well, as these will contribute to the current draw of those devices. Once your device is selected, you then choose the number of devices and the spacing between the devices and click Add. You'll then see the devices appear on the device listing as well as visually on the device ruler below. And you'll also see the total current used. You can see we used red and green to show you what's available and what's being used. So we tried to make it very visually easy to use the calculator. There's a couple of ways to adjust the distances between the devices after they have been entered. The first you'll see here is by typing in the distances in the appropriate device listing column. And the second way is to manually drag the devices along the ruler to the preferred distance. And you'll see while I'm doing that, the application adjusts the amount of voltage drop in reaction to the changes in the device distances. So it's a nice visual to see what you're doing on the circuit. In this next demo, I'm going to show you what happens when you overload a circuit with too many devices. So you can see here I'm adding more devices. I'll select the highest candela rating so they require the most power. So we'll go with 185 candela. Again, choosing mounting location and color will narrow the range. Now once the devices are added, you'll see that the tool does the required calculations, and then it provides a warning that I have overloaded my circuit. And then you'll see once the warning is accepted, the used amp bar will continue to blink red and green to show my circuit is overloaded. So obviously your options here would be then to delete devices or to add more power to your circuit. So in this demo, I'll show you what happens when the amount of voltage drop across the loop increases to the point that devices won't be powered properly based on the wire gauge. So as you can see here, I'm increasing the distance between the devices to 200 feet. And as I increase the distances, the application adjusts the voltage drop in reaction to those changes. And once I get to the bottom devices, you'll see that the voltage drop for several wire gauges has increased to the point that only an asterisk shows in the voltage drop box. And what this means is that the voltage reaching these devices for the particular wire gauge and distance is not enough to power the devices. So again, the options would be to move the devices closer together, to add more power, or to go to the larger wire gauge. So really a very nice visual to see what's happening on your circuit, you know, if you can move to a different size wire, how that would impact it, or if you simply need to add more power or less devices. Okay, so once you've completed your panel and circuit, the application provides you the option to print the details of your project. So a very important part of using the calculator. So users can print the entire job. You can print single panels or single circuits. And the print function also allows users to select all wire gauges to show on the printout, or just the chosen wire gauge if you just want to show this for your AHJ's approval. Jobs can be saved and emailed to others for viewing who also have the system sensor voltage drop calculator on their computer. If you want to take a look at the voltage drop calculator, again, you simply go to systemsensor.com/volt to download the application, and you'll see the help guide there as well. So next, let's look at how to access important documentation for your projects using the System Sensor website. But first, David, I'll turn it back over to you for our second poll question.
All right. Thanks, Krista. Our second poll question is specific to the voltage drop calculator, and really it's a question around the brand choice. So how important are tools such as a voltage drop calculator in determining what brand of AV devices you choose? So whether it's a system sensor AV device or one of our competitors. So if you could go ahead and indicate how important that is. We'll leave the poll questions open here for a few more seconds, maybe another 5 or 10 seconds. So it might be very important to your business or to your work, or maybe not so important, or again, maybe it's not applicable in this case as well. Okay, I see about 80% of you have voted. I appreciate that. Thank you for voting in our polls. Let me close that, and like we did before, I'll also share the results back with you so you can see how you and your peers, looks like about 30% or so are very important, 24% look at it important, and then 16% not important, and 3% not applicable to our business. Hey, Krista, we do have a couple questions from attendees. Would you mind taking those at this point?
Sure, that's fine.
Okay. The first one asks about a certificate that might be available, or CEU credits that might be available with this course. Do you want me to address that, or do you want to take it?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So let me answer that one first. There is no specific CEU, or in the case of the attendee ask, the PDH for this specific course. System Sensor does offer CEU credited courses, largely with our live seminar program. We will be publishing our seminar schedule in the first week of February. We will be going to 20-plus cities throughout the U.S. And putting on our full-day fire protection engineering seminar. And we will, on occasion, offer webinars that will have CEU credits, and we're looking at those to be primarily codes and standards related. That's an application we have to go through the certifying bodies. Krista, the second question that comes up is, does the voltage drop does the volt drop calculator address the 20.4 VDC minimum derating factor? Do you have an answer for that one?
Does. The starting voltage on the voltage drop calculator is 20.4 volts.
Okay, so we do address that.
Yes.
And then the next question, does the volt drop calculator allow for voltage sag due to extended runtime on batteries only? For example, source volt as low as, say, 20 volts.
I would have to say no. I'm not sure I understand the terminology, the voltage sag.
Okay.
Maybe
Would you want to get with one of our engineers and we can respond to that individual specifically?
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
very good. The next question is, and let me know if you want to cover this or not, can you go over temporal versus non-temporal and DC versus FWR in your selections?
You go over?
Yeah, can you go over? I think what they're asking for is a description of temporal versus non-temp.
Oh, sure. Temporal is the three, when you're choosing the tone of your horn, temporal is the beep, 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 and then the non-temporal would be just a continuous tone. So that does affect the current draw of the devices. And then when you're choosing the power input, your panel will either be a DC power or full wave rectified. And again, that we have different current draws on the devices depending on what type of power your panel is using. And so that's why when you're using the voltage drop calculator, we do ask specifically what type of power you're using, because that does affect the current draw. And then the same thing with all of those other selections, like I said, the temporal or non-temporal. So whether you're driving a continuous tone or if you're using the three beeps, the beep, beep, beep when you're using your horn, that also affects the current draw. And so that's why we ask, we specify in the calculator which you're using, because when it does the calculations, it takes those into account for the current draw that the device is using.
Okay. There was a question about changing the power to the circuits in the volt drop calculator. Would that be a setting of the 1 amp versus 1.5 versus 2 amp?
Right. So when you saw, when I was going through the demo, the default value for the panel power is 1 amp. You can adjust that, I think, all the way up to 15 amps. So that box, that field right there is, it's an open field. You can, put in 6.5 amps, 7 amps, all the way up to 15 amps. So we start at 1, but it is an open field that you can, change depending on what you're using.
Okay. The next question is about, can the voltage drop calculator do a Class A volt drop?
Absolutely can. That's another field that you saw when you're designing, when you're laying out your circuits. Class A or Class B is also a selection you can choose, and it absolutely does change based on a Class A circuit. So yes, it does support that.
Okay. Next question, and then we'll go back to your presentation, Krista, and then we'll get back to any attendees' questions, so continue to type those in. The attendee is asking, what is the starting voltage for the volt drop calculator as seen on the printout?
Printout, I'll have to double check, but I believe it's 20.4 volts.
Okay, that's similar to the other question.
Show up on the printout as well.
Okay. All right. So, Krista, we have a couple other questions, but let's go back to your presentation, and we'll handle the next questions at the next break.
So now I'm going to walk through a couple of ways to find information from our website. The first web page I'm going to show you is at systemsensor.com/engineering specs. And on this page, you can download engineering specifications for all of our system sensor devices, including SpectrAlert Advance devices. So we have a lot of requests for engineering specs, so we thought we would make it easy and put them all in one location on our website. So I'll walk you through how it works. First, you select the devices that you want documentation for. So we're picking product categories here, and then press the Submit for Download button. As you can see, the page will provide you the option to download a zip file of your selected specifications. So once the zip archive is downloaded, you can open it and view the engineering specifications in Word format. Obviously, you can print or email these documents, copy and paste from them, or perform any of the functions that you would with any Word document. So other important documents you can now access from our website are CAD drawings for our devices. I believe these are the most requested documents that we get calls to our tech support group for. So these are available on the specific product pages. There's multiple ways to get to the product pages. In this example, I'll just click through to a product page directly from the System Sensor homepage. So in this example, I'll start at System Sensor Home. I'll then go to Audible Visible Notification. I'm going to Speaker Strobes, and then I'll click on a specific product. Then you can see I'll click on CAD Drawing, and it gives me the option to open or save the file. In this case, I'm opening it with a free CAD viewer, and then you can see the drawing. So here we're looking at a mounting plate for one of our speaker strobes. So the files are in .dwg, or a drawing format, which is a standard format that can be viewed or edited with any of the common CAD programs or viewers. So the last thing we're going to look at is online training offered here at System Sensor. You can access System Sensor online training courses by going to systemsensor.com/training. And these courses are designed to provide a self-training option to increase your knowledge for use in the field. Once you complete the course, you can take a quiz and then print a certificate to verify that you did take the class. The current AV online training covers SpectrAlert Advance products and accessories. Over the next 3 months, we'll be updating and improving this training, as well as introducing 2 new modules that cover AV devices. So the first one will cover much of what I'm covering in this webinar and focus more in depth on how to use some of our AV tools. And then the other new course will focus on codes and requirements, which will include the new intelligibility requirements in the 2010 edition of NFPA 72. So we know that's a hot topic that you'd probably like to get more information on, so stay tuned for that online training course to be on our website. So David, we're now at our last poll question.
All right. Thanks, Krista. So the last poll question is, of the online tools you've seen so far, which do you think might be most useful? Give us an idea of what you've seen today and what might be most useful. So if you can go ahead and take a look at that, would it be the mounting options tool, that equivalent facilitation calculator, the voltage drop calculator? All of them are about the same, or again, if it's not applicable to your business, if you could go ahead and vote. We'll leave it open for another few seconds to get everyone possible to get in. We're at about 75%. We'd love to get to that 80% mark. So go ahead and vote if you would. And thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now, and just so you can, again, see what how your peers might look at the same calculations. Looks like, Krista, the volt drop calculator, overwhelmingly more than half of the attendees picked that as the top, and then about 25-26% said all of them about have the same usefulness. Krista, would you be open to answer another couple questions?
Sure.
Okay. The next question is, how does your volt drop calculator determine what manufacturer's power supply is being used? Is it, I guess, is it proprietary to a power supply, or are we just putting in a amperage rating?
It's not proprietary to any panels or power supplies. So if you go back and look at the field that we were talking about with where you select the amps, there is where you can, depending on what power supply or panel you're using, that's where you input that data there. So instead of choosing particular power supplies or panels, we left it very open, and you can, change the calculator based on the power supply that you're using. So that open field, again, that I was talking about, where you can go anywhere from 1 to 15 amps, is where you would input that information.
Okay. good. Next question is, looks like this individual is already using our volt drop calculator, and they're requesting that we add a favorites list. Any thoughts in adding that feature to the volt drop calculator?
Yeah, that's a great idea, and I welcome you guys to send us any comments you have like that on the calculator. I don't know if I mentioned, but we recently did a major overhaul of our voltage drop calculator and released it last fall. But as we speak, we are continuing to make updates and improvements to it, and that is on the list of making it easier to choose the devices, especially if you use a P2R 80% of the time instead of having to go in and enter that every time. We are looking at simplifying that. Yes, creating a favorites list or an area where you can simply enter a model number. So that's great feedback, and we are currently in the process of making that up to date.
Okay. And I do want to tell everyone that's with us today, you will receive a survey in about an hour after the conclusion of this webinar. I'll also remind you at the conclusion of the webinar as well. But there'll be an opportunity for you to have an open comment on either the webinar content and or features that you'd like to see in next generations of the volt drop calculator. And we do encourage you to fill out not only the survey, but also if you have some functionality ideas in mind to help make your job easier. Krista, the next one's a kind of a specific question. And it says some NAC boosters allow up to 2 amps for each of 4 circuits, but limit overall output to 6 amps. And then here's the question: is there any way to make sure you don't exceed the booster's overall output limit other than by adding the circuit current by hand?
No. Really, that is in the control of the user, just because we don't know what panels or boosters you're using, so that would really be, you have to do that when you're creating your circuits. So as he said, by hand, I believe that's the only way to handle that situation.
Okay, all right.
If that doesn't answer the question, feel free to email me if you need clarification, but that particular example, because we don't know, the particular specifications of your panel supply or boosters, you would have to do those calculations, take them into consideration as you're adding the information for your circuits.
Okay, good, good. And if I'd ask whoever asked that question, if you want to follow up with our tech service group, we might have, can guide you or talk with the panel companies or power supply companies as well. Krista, the next question, it's a term I'm not familiar with, but perhaps you are. Are REVIT, R-E-V-I-T, files available? Are you familiar with that term?
Not. I'm familiar with it. Can we get back to him?
Okay, we sure can. Actually, it's come up twice here in 2 different questions. So we'll ask about, we'll respond to those individuals individually. Let's see. Next question is, in the volt drop calculator, can we insert voltage drop calculations into a CAD drawing? Is that something you've been queried before?
I haven't. So currently, with the version that's available online now, the answer is no, you cannot. But it doesn't mean that that's not something we can look at in terms of improving the functionality.
Okay, all right. And then the next question, what current draw at what voltage is being used? Let's see, what current draw at what voltage is being used for the voltage drop calculation?
And I think that's asking what's the starting voltage, which is 24.
That could be.
Yeah.
That's the 20.4 answer again. Okay. And if the attendee who asked that, if that's not what you were asking, at the end you'll see both Krista and my email address, and also in the follow-up survey you'll get my email address. If you want to just ask that question again, we'll try to get more clarification. Let's see. The attendee here says he's went online to our equivalent facilitation tool, and I don't see how to do the equivalent facilitation tool is there an online help file available? So maybe a little more detailed information on how to use the equivalent facilitation tool?
Sure. I don't believe we have an online help guide for that tool. There is some explanations at the bottom, some assumptions we're making. But basically what that is doing is, it used to be so you could prove, before NFPA expanded the tables, so you could prove that you were meeting the same lumens per square foot as a wall mount device. But now that NFPA has really expanded the tables, I think most people are using that calculator. If you have a room with a strange ceiling height, something that's not covered in NFPA, to prove to the AHJ that you are meeting the lumens per square foot requirement. So if you look at the calculator, it's simply asking you, what is the candela of the strobe you're using, the size of the room in square feet, and then the height of the ceiling. And so all of those things together then provide you the calculation of saying, you are meeting the light output requirements per NFPA. And so really a lot of people now are using that calculator for strange applications, installations where you have an odd ceiling height. But I think it's being used less often now because NFPA has expanded the tables to include, more ceiling heights and sizes of rooms and things like that. So I'll take a look at it again, but I don't think we have a formal help guide, but there are a lot of explanations if you go to the web page where that calculator is found about what is taking into account to provide you with those calculations. And then you are able to print that sheet out, if you need to show the HJ or put in the job file that you are meeting the NFPA requirements for lumens per square foot for your strobe coverage.
Good. Okay. Why don't we have one more question, and then Krista will go back to the presentation, and then we'll follow up with questions after the closing. How about that?
Sure.
The question here is there a calculator available for the new intelligibility requirements on speakers?
Oh, okay. That's a very good question. Currently, System Sensor does not have a software program that addresses that need. We are publishing our speaker data to be used with EASE software. So if you've heard of EASE, it is a modeling software that we know some people in the fire industry are using. I think mostly people in the pro sound industry are using to model rooms to give you a prediction of what your intelligibility score would be. So probably at the end of this week, if you check back on our website, you will see that we'll have reports published that if you're using the E software, you can now input our data for our speakers to be used within that software program. I will tell you this is something we're looking at in the future to develop maybe a system sensor version of a speaker layout tool to provide you with, a dB prediction as well as intelligibility. So, we are aware of changes that are being made in the code, and we're looking at, solutions to help you design your systems to meet these new requirements. So stay tuned for that, but for right now I can tell you, take a look at the EASE software, and then if you check back on our website, we will have those reports published for our specific speaker models.
Right, very good. Krista, why don't we continue with the presentation, and we'll follow up with questions at the end.
Okay. So in closing, I would just like to reiterate that System Sensor provides many free tools as well as documentation to help you with design and installation of your AV project. So these tools are completely free. It doesn't hurt for you or your colleagues or employees to go and try them out, see if they can be a help for you or for your business. So all of the AV design tools I talked about today can be accessed at systemsensor.com/AV. So this page is what we call our AV online resource page. If you go here, you can find anything that you need about our audible visible products. So data sheets, installation manuals, we have our application guides. We have an application guide on how to design voice evacuation systems. We have an application guide on, just audible visible appliances and codes that relate to them. We have what we've had in the media. We have video files. We have sound files of, temporal versus continuous versus all of our chime tones. So if you have any need for information on AV devices, I would highly recommend go to this page. It's really a one-stop shop for anything you should need for system sensor AV. The online training courses can be accessed at systemsensor.com/training. And it's training courses not only on AV devices, but really our entire range of products. So there's training on conventional smoke detectors, duct detectors, AV devices. So it covers the entire system sensor product line. Remember, we are currently in the process of updating our AV online courses, and you should see new improved courses within the next few months. Again, these are completely free. If you have new employees that need to learn about products or installation, have them go online and take a look. So for the remainder of our time, I'll turn it back over to David, and we'll take any other questions that you have.
Okay, Krista, the next question has to do with the voltage drop calculator, and it sounds like the individual is looking to put in horn strobes, but then maybe later come back and change the candela size. Will the calculator allow them to do that, or do they need to delete the entry and re-add? So let's say if they're going from one size to a larger size.
Yeah, that's a good question, and kind of goes back to the user or the caller that asked about adding favorites. Right now, the way the calculator works is you would have to delete your device. Say if it was 75 and you were changing to 95, you'd have to delete it and go back in and add the new strobe, say your 95 candela. What we're working towards is making it more user-friendly to make changes like that on the fly without having to go in and delete and then add. So within the next several months, I would look at, we're going to make updates to how you choose devices and how you can manipulate the data once you've entered those devices. So right now the answer is no, but in the near future we are going to be changing that to improve it.
Okay. Krista, one of our attendees has clarified what Revit.
Oh, okay.
And it's an Autodesk 3D building information modeling software. So we'll look into the responses to that question and see how it might apply to our online tools.
Yeah, I mean, right now we don't supply any documents in that format. Yep. We can check with our engineers to see if they're available, if they use them here, if it's something we could publish for sure. And
actually, we have a addition to that. The Revit files are versions of AutoCAD, and what another attendee is saying is DWG files can be converted to RVT files if you're using the Revit software. So
okay.
Anyway, thank you for those clarifications here. Getting help along the way. Let's see here. Let's see for the very specific question. Let's see if we have an answer, Krista. I'll challenge. Do your product spec pages have the new OSHPD seismic survivability data that's being requested by hospitals and eye occupancy ratings? Any?
No, they do not.
They do not at this point. Okay.
They do not at this point. I'm not sure if that's something that is on our radar right now. I wrote myself a note to look into it, but I know when we published those specs, we did not cover that requirement.
Okay. Next question is about audibility, and it may tie into your response about intelligibility, and they're asking for an online tool for audibility. Would the same answer be applicable to them?
It would, yes. Actually, the first version of the software tool would be probably to provide a tool that gives you audibility, and then in addition to that, we would go with intelligibility. So right now, we don't have that tool, but again, it would be in the works with something to provide guidance on the intelligibility scores as well.
Right. Okay. Next question is about the equivalent facilitation calculator, And the attendee is asking, do you know what the max angle requirement is for compliance? So maybe with the strobes firing.
I'm writing a note. I do not know, but we'll get back to the person asking the question.
That's very good. Very good. And then the question is relating to NFPA, and this question is which NFPA has the equivalent facilitation table? So maybe which part of the code, I'm guessing, has equivalent facilitation table?
Well, I don't think it's not the table. What I was referring to is that previously, I think it was like the 2002 edition, the tables weren't expanded yet. So when we're looking at the 2007 edition, the 2010 edition, they really expanded the tables and spacing and ceiling height. So when people were using the equivalent facilitation calculator to prove that they were meeting what was required for NFPA for a wall-mounted strobe, it's because the tables were not expanded yet.
Okay.
And so as we moved into the newer editions, the need for this calculator has kind of gone away. We now know it's being used for more like performance-based design. Like I said, if you have an odd-shaped room or ceiling heights, but the tables I was referring to as the spacing tables for strobe coverage, those have been expanded in the last few editions to cover a wider range.
Okay. There's a couple questions here about the ease software you mentioned.
Okay.
Where would customers find the ease software if they'd want to do the intelligibility measurements themselves?
Sure. We bought a seat for that software, just so we understand how it's used and works with our data, and we went right to Ease, the manufacturer of the software.
Okay. So they should go online, EASE, Google EASE, and they would find the manufacturer?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So just to be clear to the rest of the attendees, we have files that will be loading to our website that will work with the ease software, but the ease software is something that you would purchase from a third party, and then our files would have our product's measurements that would be uploaded into that software.
Exactly.
Okay, the next question is about battery calculations, and do we know of a manufacturer that supplies a calculator for battery calculations?
Battery calculations. Well, I would say look at the panel manufacturers for that type of calculator.
So like Power Supply, Honeywell Power Products, and other companies like that?
Correct.
Okay.
Where they have specific data based on their panels or power supplies, where we're looking at it more from the device end of it.
Okay. All right. All right. So there's several questions about ease, and I think since we're not the experts on ease, we probably should refer most of these to the ease manufacturers, right?
Correct.
Let's see here. Question about, I think, the volt drop calculator. Is there an insert function to delete a device or reinstall another device?
There is an insert function to delete devices. There is not, per se, to add devices. You have to go back to, I think it's step 3, where you add devices. And if it's added, at the top, you can drag it along the device area where you see where the devices get added. You can move it in there to place it depending on where it needs to be on the circuit.
Okay.
So right now, if you're moving devices, you can delete devices that you've added, but then you need to go back up into the area where you add devices. There's really not an easy way to undo, per se, if you deleted the wrong device.
All right. This question is somewhat related to that. If they put a circuit together and they wanted to add a device in the middle or at the front or at the end, what flexibility do they have? Is that a drop and drag feature, or how would they complete that in the volt drop calculator?
That is. That piece of it is drag and drop within the circuit layout. So once you have your circuit and you've added your devices, you can then move them around depending on where you want them within the circuit.
Okay.
So that is a drag and drop functionality.
All right. And let's see here. A couple of questions are related to that, so it seems like it was a popular answer, hopefully. So can you install at the end and slide it to where it's at? Yes, you can. Okay. How is the current used on the volt drop calculations determined? Is it using the current draw at 16 volts?
Yeah, right. So what we publish on our data sheets is worst case for current draw, and so that is what we also use in our voltage drop calculator. So that is what UL requires us to publish, and that's what you'll see on our data sheets and installation manuals. That's the same value that we're using in the voltage drop calculator. And so that's what we call, worst case.
All right, very good. The last one is more of a comment. It's back to that battery calculation, and the attendee says that every panel that they know of comes with a battery calculation table in their manual.
Okay.
So that might be a source for that the person who was questioning if a voltage or a battery calculation is available as an online tool.
Okay, very good.
Krista, that's all the questions that we have at this time, and I see we're just a couple minutes to the top of the hour. On behalf of System Sensor, I want to thank you for joining us today. As a follow-up, we will be sending you a brief survey in about an hour, and we would appreciate your help in filling that out. And we do plan to reward one of you that completes the survey with a $50 Target gift card. And if you have an interest in a more detailed examination of fire and smoke detection technologies, be sure to join us for our webinars covering that topic next month. Registration details will be available online in a few days at the training link at systemsensor.com. I want to thank you for joining us today. This does conclude our webinar. Please have a great rest of the day.